Hello, welcome back to my channel. This is another video series on strategies for pre-fishing a tournament. What I mean by this is, what are the strategies I'm going to use to pre-fish for a tournament? And that means I'm basically trying to figure out ahead of time what baits I want to use when I go pre-fishing to help me narrow down the possibilities. Now, the lake we're going to go to here in November with the Midweek Bass Club is Apache Lake. And we're going to fish the third week in November. So that means we're definitely in late fall here in Arizona, okay, where the mornings are crisp and cool, but the afternoons warm up into the mid-upper 70s, maybe even the low 80s if the day is sunny. Typical late fall pattern for Arizona. Hello, I'm Joe Michels, the owner of FishPoint, and this is our media channel. Welcome. I started fishing in Arizona in 1985, and in 1986 I joined the Arizona Bass Club. After a few years of learning, I started to win tournaments, and eventually I became the Angler of the Year. About the same time, I also started a tackle company called Conquistador Tackle that made wired worms, which were an improvement over the good old Westy worm that had been around for so many years. We also made jigs and finesse baits and hand-poured worms, things like that. And in 2002, I joined a local Pro-Am circuit, won some tournaments, became Angler of the Year. Now, about 8 years ago, I stopped fishing. And boy, have things changed since then. New boats, new motors, new electronics, trolling motors are new, right? New techniques, new baits. A lot of things have changed. And so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to take all that new stuff to me, I'm going to apply it to my deep knowledge of Arizona bass fishing, and we're going to go do this together. We're going to go out on the water and we're going to catch fish here in Arizona. And remember, like everybody else, please hit the subscription button. Subscriptions are free, they don't cost anything, so that just helps you get notified when new videos are out. And we're going to make a bunch of videos, and that helps me get my channel up to other viewers. So I appreciate it. So remember, please hit that subscribe button. And if you like this video, hit the like button, because there's nothing better for me, the producer of these shows, to know what kind of shows you guys really like. One of the things to consider when fishing in the late fall in Arizona is the lake in turnover. Okay, that means that during the summer the lake stratifies, cooler water at deeper levels, and then near the top the water's warmer. Okay, so you've heard Arizona can have 90 degrees water temperature. Well, we're talking about that as the surface temperature. As the days shorten, the nights cool, that top water begins to cool down, and then it drops through the water column and it turns the water over. The water at the bottom can move to the top, and the water at the top moves to the bottom. It just all flips around. And that can impact fishing for, let's say, a week or so during and after the turnover. In other words, it makes the fishing tougher, okay? Another thing that can happen is you can have weather fronts go through in the late fall. And, you know, depending on what's going on, it can make the fishing better, right? If it's a prefrontal day, or meaning it's cloudy, or if the front has arrived and it's raining or something like that, the fishing can just explode. Keep that in mind. One of the things you need to consider when you're fishing a tournament is what kind of weight is it going to take to win. We're going to have a 5-fish limit in the Midweek Bass Club. And so what weight will it take at Apache Lake in the fall? Great question, but I think it's going to take 17 pounds to win, at least. Probably 17, let's say, and I believe that the big fish of the tournament is going to be over 7 pounds. Now, that is my guess if the weather is stable. In other words, we have the sunny days, cool mornings, warm afternoons, a little breezy, stuff like that. To me, that's stable fishing, and if it's stable for a week ahead of time and then we're fishing in the lake, I'm guessing 17 pounds. If we're prefrontal or the storm is above us, God only knows, it could explode. 25 pounds maybe, who knows, right? Certainly we're going to break 20 pounds if it's under those conditions. What happens if it's post-frontal? 12, 13 pounds is my guess, just a guess. And about that turnover, what's the weight for the turnover? Well, who knows, because Apache Lake is a long and skinny lake. 20 miles long, let's say. So there may be turnover in one part of the lake and the fishing isn't any good in that part. You run 10 miles to the other end of the lake and all of a sudden the fishing is great again. So, that's the thing to avoid. If you're not getting bid and you think there might be turnover going on, well, avoid that and find a different part of the lake. What are some of the techniques that I'm going to try in my pre-fishing strategy? One of the things I'm going to do is I am going to fish the jerkbaits. These are Megabass 110 Edo Visions, I believe. These are pretty good sized jerkbaits. I got two different colors here, just the pure shad color, but I like the purple-ish, blue purple. And this one just has a chartreuse belly. I kind of like that for triggering fish, let's say in the morning or something like that, especially in a little darker water. And Apache Lake's water is not crystal clear. So this is some colors we can try. I might even go for orange belly and copper sides, something like that. Why jerkbait at Apache? That's really a great question. Apache sets up really well for the jerkbaits and the fish respond to jerkbaits there. So when the water cools in the fall, not to turnover, but just when the water cools, the fish move up shallow again. They come off their deeper points in 15, 20, 25, 30 foot of water, and they'll move up into the shallower water next to boulders, just hanging off of the bluffs, suspended a little bit, but higher in the water column. And that's why I think this bait works so well. Apache Lake is basically bluff after bluff after bluff, 45, 60 degree, type banks. The fish move in when they feed up into the rock. They go after the bait fish. They go after crawdads. And when they're done, they come out and suspend. This bait can work where those fish are hanging. Okay, the suspended fish, this bait will go right through those suspended fish. The fish will be looking up, and these baits come flying by. And that's why I think jerk baits work at Apache Lake so well. Will they be working in the fall? I don't know, but you got to try. Will you catch the winning fish with a jerkbait? Will you catch a 7-pounder with a jerkbait? I know I have done it in the springtime. I've caught 7-pounders in the springtime on jerkbaits. It's not spring, so who knows, but I'm going to give it a shot and find out. One way to catch a big fish, I think, is to use big topwater baits. I brought a couple out here. This is, I don't even know what brand this is. I've had it a long time. It is a big walking bait, kind of like a spook, but it's not a spook. But it's a big bait. If I'm going to go out after a big fish first thing in the morning, I might want to put one of these on. I want to find a boulder field. I want to find a point with rock boulders on it, and I want to run this over the top. If those fish are up feeding in the morning, like I said, they suspend during the day and they may go up to feed, then getting this big bait in front of a big fish could do the trick. This bait can catch a 7-pound fish. It's rare, but it can be done. Another great bait I just love is the gunfish. This is a Lucky Craft gunfish. Not only is this a walking bait like this one, but it also has a spitter mouth, right? And it's a combination of spitting and walking. It's just kind of a cool bait. I've caught a lot of fish on it. I have a lot of degree of confidence in this bait. And it's a pretty good sized bait. So here's a couple examples. You use your favorite walking bait, by the way, and give it a shot. Now, I mentioned early morning, but because of the sun angle and the warming waters in the afternoon, I have done pretty well sometimes throwing this in the afternoon where I know I'm throwing next to rocks and boulders that produce shade pockets, okay? So if you have a flat area like this and you have a boulder about like this big, let's say, well, if you get the right location in the sun being to the south, you get shade pockets on the north side of that boulder. And there's nothing like taking this bait and walking it across that boulder that's just barely under the water to bring up that 4 and 5 pounder to eat. It's a long shot. It'll take guts to throw that a lot. But one thing about the Midweek Bass Club, which is fantastic, is I'm the boater. I'm going to draw a co-angler. For that day, we fish together as a team, so we work together. So I can be throwing this guy, walking this bait next to these, over the tops of these boulders, and my guy in the back can be throwing a drop shot next to those boulders. They can be throwing, some of the other baits I'm going to show you, and they might catch the fish. So they still might be there, but the two of us can work it out to find the best bite. Anyway, think topwater. And I would say if you watch this video and you're going to go to Apache Lake in the next week and a half, definitely throw some topwater. You'll probably do quite well catching some fish, certainly in the morning. Because the fish are up shallow, crankbaits can be a thing to do here. Fall time and early winter in Arizona, crankbaits just shine. That's when, because the fish have moved back up shallow again, in the mornings they're feeding, you can go after them with crankbaits. And Apache's no different. So it might be interesting to give this a try. This happens to be an old Lucky Craft. They don't make this model anymore, but I love the size. It dives about 6 to 7 feet. And again, what I'm going to target is these boulder fields, rocky points with boulders next to them. And I'm just going to get this bait zipping by and seeing if I can't get a bite. I mean, Apache Lake is all bluffs, whether it's 60 degree or 45 degree. The fish move up in the shallows to eat. And so you can go after them with a crankbait. So that's a great bait. Now, this is the shad pattern. Perfectly good, nothing wrong with that. But sometimes in the morning, you might want to try something a little brighter color. This happens to be a bandit, one of the least expensive baits on the market, and it catches fish like crazy. I've had this bait for many, many years. I catch so many fish on this bait. It's incredible. This one happens to be blue back with chartreuse, orange belly. The point is it's a brighter color. Maybe throw this in the morning, low light conditions. Go get some Lucky Craft if you want, or OSPs. I think they're pretty cool baits, by the way. But get some with bright colors as well, and throw those and give them a shot. It's definitely worth trying a crankbait when you're pre-fishing this time of year at Apache and all the lakes. So give that a shot. What about catching a big giant fish? Well, all right. So I'm still playing around with big crankbaits. This is the Mega Bass Big M 4.0, and that 4.0 stands for meters. 4 meters, that's like 12 feet. So supposedly this bait would go down 12 feet. Maybe not, but I like the size of this bait. There are gizzard shad in Apache, and if I'm going to go after a big bite, 5, 6, 7 pounder, why not go after them with a big bait? I tell you what, it's going to take a lot of guts to throw this, but again, I have a partner who can be doing something else. I would throw this bait in opportune times, let's say, maybe first thing in the morning, try it. Maybe when I've got a nice limit and I just want that big bite. Maybe they're just eating crankbaits pretty good, and you keep catching the same 3 pounder. Wouldn't that be a problem? Why not try something bigger? I'm going to have one tied on. I'll give it a try. What's interesting is I have another color pattern in a deep diving one of these, and it's bluegill type pattern. I think that's a great color pattern that use at Apache Lake. There are huge numbers of bluegill that are about this size, right? So having a bit more of a bluegill pattern certainly wouldn't hurt if you want to catch a big fish at Apache. So I'm going to look into buying me another one in the 4.0. We'll see, but I want to see this work. I haven't actually casted this bait yet, so I'm taking a risk here. But sometimes you need that big bite. Go for it with a big bait. Now let's switch to what I think is going to be probably the family of baits that are probably going to win the tournament. These are plastics, okay? So let me just start in with football jigs. It's a Yamamoto double tail. It's a football jig. This looks like to be about a 3/4 ounce one. Maybe it's a heavy half, let's say. This very well could win the tournament, this bait, or variations on this bait, okay? The crawdad bite is always a good thing to do at Apache Lake. You can catch fish from 1.5 pounds to 8 pounders on jigs. This particular one with a heavier head is something I might throw on the flats that are at Apache Lake, where I'm dragging it along the flats, and then as it hits the brakes, I drop it down the edge because I got this heavy head. So this heavy head is about kicking up stuff on the bottom, making noise, kicking stuff up, and trying to get those fish to bite. If those fish are out on those flats and you find a school of 4 pounders, boom, you can win. Great bait to throw. Another great bait I just love throwing, this is a chigger craw, right? Nobody in Arizona likes to throw these, right? Yeah, hardly. What I like about the chigger craw is I can use a nice open hook. This is the 3/8 ounce head on it. As a matter of fact, I don't like using Texas style with a chigger craw because I think the plastic's too tough. It's hard to get a hook through tough plastic, but when I'm fishing open hook, which I'm going to do at Apache Lake, this is a fantastically great bait. What I love about this bait is, of course, as it drops, it does this with its arms and stuff. And I love throwing this up against a bluffs, especially next, let's say, to a boulder the boulder might be sitting out in 4 foot of water, and you throw it up next to that boulder, and as it sinks, you know, it hits, the fish come up and eat it because it has this incredible action as it drops. Another thing to consider, this happens to be a 1/4 ounce football that I have hooked up here at the moment. That's another great jig head. Instead of the 3/8, put on that 1/4 because it just slows the fall, right? This, with a 1/4 ounce head, this thing will slow pretty slowly. And sometimes you need that to entice that fish to come out from that boulder and eat that bait, especially on the drop. I've talked to you before about the Bait Labs Kick and Craw. I really, really like this bait. I caught some really nice fish with this bait at Swirl, 3.5 pounders, pretty consistently. This color, to be exact, notice it's two-toned. This size, I was throwing in the summer, catching the bigger fish. I really gonna throw this. I think this is a great bait. Put it on a 1/2 ounce football head and go to town. Again, this has really tough plastic, and I don't think I would fish this Texas style at all, but put a football head on it and way to go. This one's a little smaller in size. I have a pretty good size head. This is probably a 3/4 ounce, maybe a 1/2 ounce head. Pretty heavy head. Take this bait and put on this 1/4 ounce head. Okay, I should just do it, but I can see how that 1/4 ounce head on this little compact craw would be just fantastic. So I'm going to be throwing this a lot too in the future and now. Another technique to use at Apache Lake for this tournament is going to be the drop shot. I don't need to say much about it. People use it on every lake in the state all year round, and it catches fish. What's interesting is it can catch some really large fish. And it may be the case where that subtle presentation of that little skinny worm, straight tail sort of worm, might just entice the big fish to bite. So it's very possible that the tournament could be won with drop shot. For me though, I am not going to spend much time with drop shot unless I really need to get a bite to finish the limit. That's just how I think. I'll probably have a drop shot on. If I see something on my graph, I'm like, oh, I'm just going to drop on it, take that, throw it out there, drop on it, and try to catch them. I think that can work. But I'm always looking for bigger bites generally, right? I want to catch the 4 pounders. That's what I want to do. And I think that a jig worm is a bait that can do that. This is a good sized worm, and it has this big kicker tail. This is a Yamamoto Swim Senko. I've shown you this before, using it as a J-rig, hooked up Texas style, right? To get through fish habitat, to get through bushes and stuff like that. Again, at Apache Lake, I'm going open hook. I have the 1/4 ounce one on here, and I think that's really awesome. I can run this with a spinning rod if I want to. I can run it with a bait caster, 12-pound test line. I can do anything I want. What I love about these football heads is if you throw it up against one of these little bluffs, especially a little wall face, and give it slack, it's gonna fall straight down, okay? And because of the way this hooks on, where you hook the line, that line will follow it down. It'll keep it from pendulum out. It'll have it go straight down. So that's a great thing to get your bait right next to the bluff and wall and let it sink to the bottom. Hopefully the fish attack it on the way down, and there you go. You know, I will fish this worm, and if they're biting worms, straight tail worms, I'm going to fish a bigger 8 or 9 inch worm with a jig head as well. I've shown you that before. Caught some big ones at 6-pounder at a Swirl. I've caught some really nice ones at Apache Lake in the summer. The question is, will they still be eating that big worm here in the fall? Don't know. Might have to give it a shot. If you haven't subscribed already, please do so. I'm going to keep doing those videos, and I want you to get them and watch them. Another thing is, really, please give me a comment. If you like what you're seeing here, just say, hey, love it, keep doing it. Say that, hey, Joe, can you talk about this lake? Can you talk about that lake? Can you talk about this technique? Hey, Joe, get out of your office and go fishing again. That's something I'm going to be doing here. And so just please give me thumbs up, subscribe, and leave a comment. That really helps. It allows me to get more information to you faster. What else can happen in Apache Lake? Well, let me tell you a little story about a fishing tournament that my friend Randy Gray, who we've been friends a long time, he's in the Bass Club, and he's been on my YouTube channel a couple times. We fished Apache Lake together twice. We fished a tournament many, many years ago, 15, 20 years ago at Apache Lake in the fall. I'm not sure if it was October or November, December. It was late in the fall. Fishing wasn't that great. It was kind of tough. We ended up in 3rd place. we only had 4 keepers. We needed one good bite and we would have split a boat. The closest I ever came to winning a boat was that tournament. All I needed is 1 3-pound bite, would have made all the difference. But here's the point. The winning team won fishing the grass, okay, at Apache Lake. Back then they used vibrating crankbaits, you know, Cordell spots is what they probably used back then. There's all kinds of them now. They throw it over the grass, get it stuck in the grass and pull it loose. At least that's what I think they were doing. They might have been using spinnerbaits as well, by the way, so that's something to consider. I think today I would go after them in the grass with a chatterbait, of course. I would use a rattling crankbait as well, a vibrating crankbait, I should say, and I could go after that. Plus, Apache Lake has probably more patches of grass now than it had back then, so that's a good thing. The question is, can a person catch 17 pounds of fish out of the grass? Boy, I don't know. I think maybe not. But what happens if it's one of these days where the fishing's tough and you need that 12 pounds of fish? I think you can certainly catch 12 pounds of fish out of the grass. So that's something that I may or may not try. If I'm being successful with a lot of this stuff, especially probably the jigs and the worms like that, I'm probably not going to try the grass. But if it gets tough, I might have to give that a shot. So keep that in mind. As always, try to find those grass patches and fish them. You could also throw a drop shot in there too, by the way, probably, right? So why not? So there you have it. There's my strategy for pre-fishing Apache Lake in November. I hope you learned something from this, and I hope that you get up to Apache Lake while you can. Keep in mind that getting into the lake, you have to go from Roosevelt Lake to the marina or to the Burn Corral boat ramp, and they're changing the dates and times when you can get in and get out, so you have to keep that in mind. But I can tell you that there's a lot of great fish at Apache Lake. It's probably one of the most underutilized resources in Arizona. So if you get a chance to get up there, try some of the things I did. And as always, if nothing works, get out that drop shot. You'll probably have a good time catching fish. Hey, thank you for joining me for this video. I appreciate it. You guys have a great day.